Hi there, Terry here with another episode of the Animation Industry Podcast. Today I'm chatting with Kevin Parry, who is very well known for working at Laika on the feature films The Boxtrolls, Kubo and the Two Strings, and The Missing Link. His career started back in 2010 after making a short stop-motion animated film called The Arctic Circle at Sheridan College, where I am currently studying animation myself. He has also been part of Variety Magazine's 10 Animators to Watch in 2016, and then in 2018 he moved on from Laika and back to Toronto to focus on social media full-time, where he shares his super fun and short stop-motion animations and video magic skills. And you might just say he's become Insta-famous because he's racked up nearly 1 million followers on Instagram, over 77 million views and 500,000 subscribers on YouTube, and over 50,000 followers on Twitter. So Kevin, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm excellent, and I'm really happy you're here. I've been trying to get you on for quite some time. And it's funny, like my classmates at school always have like different requests on who I should bring on, and everybody's like, oh, you should bring on Kevin. So glad you're finally here. So there are a number of things I want to chat about in this podcast, and your career, where it began, how you ended up at Laika, and currently, your path on social media where you've gained over 1 million followers. But let's kind of roll it all back to where it began. What was the dream that propelled you forward as a kid into choosing animation?
So I was never really, animation was never really the focus for me as a kid. I was super into both magic and special effects. So I loved watching like behind the scenes featurettes on like monster makeup and how practical effects were done in movies. And then mix that with just a love for all things magic and magicians. And I think those interests just combined and propelled me into wanting to get into filmmaking. And then around the time I was in high school was when I decided to get into animation. And that was when Pixar was kind of really, hitting its peak. And I was like, these Pixar films are incredible. Maybe I could do something like that. So that was kind of the last thing that motivated me. And then, so it was only about a few years before deciding like I had to go to college. I decided to get into animation.
So I have a couple questions on that. First of all, like, are you going to pursue magic? Like that's really interesting that you wanted to do magic and ended up as an animator.
Yeah. So I attempted as a child. I used to put on magic shows in my living room for my family. And I always wanted to be a magician, but I just never had the stage presence. Like 90% of being a magician is just being able to work a crowd. And I had none of that skill.
Well,
so it didn't pan out.
Now.
Creating magic videos online is my version of being a magician.
Fair. Okay, so also kind of a follow-up to the Sheridan thing. Like Sheridan's a pretty rigorous program to get into. So you had to put together a portfolio and like it's tough to get in. So like how was that experience, just kind of deciding a few years before you wanted to do that? Because a lot of people will spend years and years practicing for their portfolios.
Yeah, so I actually failed the first time applying. So when I applied from high school, I didn't get in. And that was largely because I didn't have enough preparation. I come from a small town in Northern Ontario, and like life drawing wasn't a thing that existed. A lot of animation training wasn't a thing that existed. The internet, like YouTube, wasn't a thing when I was applying to share it. So there weren't many resources. The only thing I remember learning animation from, I ordered like a VHS set from some like company in Vancouver. That's how I had to learn about animation. So obviously I failed the first time around. And then the year I went to Sheridan, so I applied for a general year, like the art fundamentals course. And the year I went, they only did it for 2 years, I believe. They did an art fundamentals animation course where you spend the entire year focusing on developing your portfolio to get in. So every school assignment was a portfolio piece for getting an animation. And after doing that year, I like barely made it in. I was like a few points ahead of getting in.
Oh man. So
Yeah.
when you were so Sheridan is very focused on developing 2D skills
Yeah.
specifically, for like TV shows and whatnot. You can specialize in like 3D animation and also stop motion. Did you know you wanted to do stop motion right away? Like how did
No, I didn't. I did not even touch stop motion until third year.
how did that happen?
It was Chris Walsh. He had a course. He started that year, I believe, or it was the year before, and it was like a third year intro to stop motion course. And just the second I attempted it, I was like, yeah, I get this.
So what meshed for you with stop motion that
I,
I guess other forms of animation didn't?
it must just be the way my brain's wired. I don't know. It just clicked for me with hand drawn animation. I just didn't have the drawing skills. Like I could see the animation, but it wouldn't get out of my hand onto the paper. And then obviously there's a lot of technical barriers for CG, but for stop motion, I knew what I wanted to animate, and I could just grab it and do it. There was nothing in the way of me getting my animation out.
So your like thesis film, The Arctic Circle, is like stellar. It's animated really well, the sets, the characters, everything. Did you like go from never touching stop motion until third year to developing that like just through the classes, or were you doing stuff on your own time? Were you like
I
doing all of your
started,
assignments in stop motion?
yeah, I kind of got bit by the bug and just started experimenting in my apartment for the year before making that film. I just made some very basic puppets and just did some like timing tests, like bouncing balls and some basic performance stuff. But I think back to animating that film, and I had no idea what I was doing. Um, like I did zero planning for the animation and just winged it, and it just kind of came out.
Okay. Well, you clearly have a natural talent for it.
Like
So
there must have just been something inside that I don't know, just like the way like some artists can just designs just pour out of them. Like that was just stop motion clicked for me.
so what is that thing that clicks for you? And is it like touching a puppet and being able to move it? Is it like I don't know.
Just a little bit of everything. Yeah, it's the touch. Um, when you're toggling your frames animating, like your live to your previous frames, I think there's just something about being able to see that. Like there's this gut instinct when you know the frame is right and you can hit that shoot button. Um, and yeah, I think some animators are just in tune with that.
Nice. So how did you go from your thesis film to working at Laika then?
So I had two jobs before Laika. I went right out of school. I went to Guru, which is a CG studio, and I had never done any CG before, but they trusted me enough.
So wait, they saw your stop motion thesis and were like, "You're for CG now."
Yeah, they essentially said we don't care what medium it is, you can animate well enough. So I went to Guru for about 3/4 of a year, and then while I was there, there was a job posting for a studio out in San Francisco. It was a Henry Selick film, the now infamous shut down, The Shadow King. And so I applied for that, got it, and I went out to San Francisco for a bit.
How did you apply? Just with your thesis film, and then you got it
Yeah,
from
it's actually it's a funny story, and I kind of use this as an example of like shoehorning your way into the industry. Um, they they were very beginning of production, and they put up a post for a story job, so some kind of storyboarding position. And I was like, well, here's a new stop motion feature that's happening. And I just took that email that they put for the story post, and I just emailed it directly and said, I want to animate on this film. Here's my my thesis film. And then like within a couple hours, they sent that off to the animation director. And within like an hour, he emailed me back. And like within a day, we were chatting about me coming out there. Um, super lucky, but also I had to like, I kind of weaseled my way in, which is sometimes you have to do that.
Well, that's also, I mean, that's fine.
Yeah.
So then, well, that got shut down, everybody knows, but
Yeah.
then a
Yeah.
bunch
So
of,
when I was at Sheridan, a recruiter from Laika came to visit, and I had about half my thesis film finished at that point. And I showed it to her, and she responded well to it, and it obviously made its way to the people at Laika. It like went into the vault of like people they might call one day. And so when the project in San Francisco shut down, when Disney canceled it, the animation director at Laika kind of emailed everyone who got fired and was like, we need more people out here. So I got a call that day. And then within a few months, I was out in Portland.
Oh, wow. Gosh. And on a visa too, I guess, because you're Canadian, right?
Yeah. So yeah, these larger companies will take care of all that stuff.
Nice.
It's funny when I went out to the Disney gig in San Francisco, all my legal paperwork had like a big Mickey Mouse watermark on the top of the page. So like the border agents would just see that and be like, all right, approved.
Oh, I guess they're used to it.
Yeah.
So where did you start at Laika? Like, what was your first animation that you did there?
So I started there as an animation assistant. And a lot of that is testing things for the animators. So, if there's a shot that, say, a character has to burst out of curtains, well, they have to figure out how those curtains are going to animate. And it's not worth the animator's time to spend a week testing that, so they'll give it to an assistant. So I would go to the rigging department and say, oh, I think they should be rigged up this way. And I would test those for a few days until I could.
So just like days of like opening and closing curtains different ways?
Yeah, like little stop motion curtain, like animating them. And just working out systems to prep for the animator so when they could get on their shots, they could have something that worked. So a lot of that. Or like, we need little pieces of cheese to cut in this shot. So you test that and present it to them. You're kind of like proof of concepting stuff.
So what is the caliber of animation that you're doing in these test shots? Are you doing like full 24 frames per second, like amazing fluid stuff?
It depends. Most of the time you'd shoot it on twos. But if as an assistant, you're trying to prove yourself. So every once in a while you'd be like, I got this. And you'd shoot it on 24 frames per second just to like impress everyone above you. And then
so what was a shot that you used to impress everybody?
I can't remember on Boxtrolls. It's so long ago. I did quite a bit of testing on there's that big mecha drill thing, and it was like 4 feet tall.
Yeah.
So I did quite a bit of testing on that. It was probably just a bunch of tests that grouped together.
Fair enough. So like, at what point were you pretty confident that you were going to move your way up from assistant to an actual character animator?
I wasn't too confident. It actually came as a surprise because I was only on the last half of Boxtrolls, kind of like the final push, and then that was wrapping. And so as a film wraps, you're on contract. And you kind of like think, oh, I got to find a job somewhere else in the meantime until the next film rolls around. And I figured, oh, I'm like the lowest on the totem pole, so I'll go work on another movie. I'll come back here after. So I was working on. I had applied to Anomalisa, which was shooting like kind of right around the end of Boxtrolls, and we were like halfway through the process of me getting onto that movie. And then my boss came to me. He's like, oh, do you want to come back like a month after Boxtrolls to start on Kubo, and we'll make you a full-time animator?
Yeah.
It's like, so I was like, Anomalisa, I can't work on your movie.
Oh no. Well, that's amazing. How many assistant animators are there at a time?
There's usually about maybe like 4 or 5.
4 or 5, and then how many animators or lead animators are there?
Maybe like 2 or 3.
Gosh, so the entire Boxtrolls movie was animated by like 6, 7 people?
No. There's leads who kind of oversee the animation.
Yeah.
But actual total animators is like 25 to 30.
Gosh, that's still really small. Like that's not that many people. Yeah. How many people are in the production fabrication department with puppets and everything?
There's 100 or 2. There's
Oh
quite a
God,
bit.
wow.
Yeah.
Huh. So I guess you were offered the role to become like a full animator on Kubo. What was the biggest thing that you learned as an assistant in animation, or just like in your career at that point?
Um, well, so as an assistant, you do the testing part of it, but then you also get to do shots as well for the movie. And my first shot on Boxtrolls was like one of the characters looks out a window, and in the distance on the street, you see like a trash can lid roll down and like swirl and hit the ground. So that was my first shot. And then you'll do stuff anytime there's a cut to and there's a hand grabbing something, like you'll start doing shots like that. Um, and then you evolve to shots, say like a shot where a character just has to like look from point A to point B, where there's like not much acting going on. So you start with these little like peppered in shots. And really the thing you learn during that is just confidence as an animator. Because you have to, your animation is being shown in a theater to 100 people, and they're framing through it with laser pointers, critiquing everything. Um, so you
That's
just got,
intimidating.
yeah, so it is, and you just learn to have confidence in yourself and, accept criticism and, yeah, just kind of be part of production.
So why do you think they wanted you to come on as a full-time animator with Kubo then, after being an assistant? Like, what was the unique skill that they were like, we need Kevin for this?
I'm not sure. I think I might have proven myself in some kind of technical capacity. I've always leaned more towards being good at technical things. Like there are animators who are incredible actors, and just the emotion pours out of them into their puppets. But that's never been my strong suit. I've been better at the technical stuff. So when I came on to Kubo, I was assigned all of the origami development.
Right.
So I think they trusted me to get into like the science of origami, because we had quite a few shots where paper had to actually fold into things, and it was like pattern development and like how origami would move and those things. So I think my skill set worked well with that.
Fair. Leading up to this chat, I posted on my Instagram asking if people had questions for you. So I'm just gonna pepper them throughout, but a couple of them come to mind right now. And one was like, what was your work ethic like at Laika specifically? Like, I guess, are you working hard all the time, like long hours? I don't know.
Yeah, it depends. There's that old kind of film adage of hurry up and wait. So sometimes you're right against it, sweating bullets, like animating like a madman. And then sometimes you're sitting around for days while the camera crew sets up for your shot.
Like you're not doing anything?
Yeah, there were definitely full days of doing nothing.
Oh, wow.
We are kind of just sitting on your set, and maybe once in a while you'll input with the camera team. But for some of the more complex shots, yeah, they need days to set up and light the thing.
Gosh. How do you keep focus for hours on end on like a very small task when you're animating?
I think that's just, if you're a stop motion animator, I think you just love doing that kind of stuff.
Yes.
No one who hates minutia is going to get into stop motion animation.
I know. I don't think anybody would get into stop motion for like any other reason unless they love it.
But for me, like people always ask me how I have the patience for it.
Yeah.
And I've always kind of deflected that as, it's not, to me, it's not really about patience. It's about problem solving. For me, like every time I touch a puppet and move it, it's solving a puzzle. If you look at the performance as a puzzle, and like everything is just about solving that.
I totally feel that, and it's like fun, and when you hit it right, it just feels good.
Exactly. Yeah.
It looks good, and you just like when I do it, I just feel excited, even though I'm like by myself, nobody's around. I'm in like a studio, it's dark. I'm like, I can't wait until somebody sees this months from now.
Yeah. No, there have been times like that on set where there's just a frame that just hits it right on. And you're like, you just want to scream it from the rooftop.
But then you got to keep animating. What was the weirdest, this is another question. What was the weirdest thing that happened during filming or of any of the movies that you filmed on?
Oh, so there was an incident on the Boxtrolls where I was filming um, like eggs up high in a raptor set. Like he's way up in a ceiling. So it was like a 6 or 7 foot set. And I had these wooden stairs up to it. And I had to like keep climbing these stairs, animate, back down the stairs, up the stairs, animate,
Oh my
back down the
gosh.
stairs. And they didn't we didn't have like any hand railings on them on the stairs. It was just like a 5 foot set of stairs. And one frame I just got in the zone and just went the wrong way at the top of the stairs and just Mr. Magooed it right off the stairs. So I took like a 5 foot fall tumbling through the set and like light stands. And I ended up like bashing my head on the wall on the way down. And luckily I didn't hit anything like all the light stands.
Just your body.
Yeah, and it like, and of course they like, HR starts freaking out, so they sent me to the hospital to get like checked out. And there was like, the doctor noticed, he's like, "What's this tiny brick pattern like imprinted into your head?" I was like, "Yeah, it's a tiny bricks on that set." So I have this medical report of like, it says fell 5 feet off a platform while animating.
Oh my goodness, that's scary though.
After that, they initiated a mandatory handrail.
Yeah, I'm of course. Can you walk me through the pipeline at Laika or just a professional studio in general? I got a lot of questions about like how does that whole process go? So you're animating, but what happens? I mean, you kind of talked about the assistant thing and then the animation thing, but like, can you just walk me through the Cole's notes?
For like animating a shot.
I guess sure, like the pipeline of like I guess the director, the script writer, the storyboard to you
Oh,
to all that stuff. If just quickly, I guess.
I don't know. I'm not too sure about the pipeline before animation. All I know is there's a storyboard and the voices are recorded um, before animation. Um, but I can maybe if I give you the rundown of like a typical shot for an animator, that might help.
Sure, yeah.
Um, yeah, so as an animator, you're assigned a shot, and what you're given are the boards, like the animatic, so the boards with the music and voices and all that. Um, and what you'll do is you're assigned the shot, and then you go to edit to speak to the director. And you'll watch the shot, the storyboards over and over with the director, and the director says, I'm looking for this type of performance. Like they're directing an actor. They're saying, I want this, think about this, I want this kind of pose. And they'll send you off to rehearse the shot. And then from there, you would visit anything you need for your shot. You would visit rigging and get them to start working on it. So if you need a paper to fly through the air, you'll get a rig made for that. If you need your puppet to do this and that, you'll get a rig made for that. So that might take a half a day or full day. And then you kind of get everything prepped to do your shot. And then you're left alone, you rehearse the shot. So that would be on 12 frames per second. And then you send that in and then you'll go back to edit with the director. And it's the director's chance to see if you're on the same page.
When you say rehearse, are you talking about like when you post videos of you acting it out, or do you animate the entire scene on
We'll animate the whole shot on 2s.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So that's the rehearsal stage of it. And then, yeah, once you send that in, you go back to edit to review that with the director. And that's kind of their last chance to say, you didn't quite get this right, fix this, fix that. And then once you're sent off after the rehearsal, you launch on the hero shot and you just have to get it right. And then, yeah, you get through the animation and then it's sent off and you hear back yay or nay. Most of the time it's approved. There's very little times where it's not.
Yeah, I can imagine. What's the toughest part for you through all this? Like, is it getting the acting right or like the final shot right or what?
For me, I always put like a ton of emphasis on the prep for the shot. So I would spend way too much time preparing, where to the point where like the production managers were like, "Are you going to start animating like sometime soon?" But it's animation is mostly prep. Like if you prepare right, you'll get the shot right.
Cool. So I do want to move on and talk about where you're currently at, but I'm just wondering, like, if somebody wants to work at Laika, what are they looking for specifically now that you've been there and you've animated there and you've worked with people?
Yeah, I would say for animation, I've seen people get jobs there with like a demo reel that's just a steel armature, and they might do one decent walk and one good acting shot. But just like a steel armature on a wooden background, no flash. Yeah, like if you want to animate, you don't have to build a puppet and like sew little clothes. And
So they want to see that I guess the fundamentals and you can do some performance.
exactly, if you can control a puppet.
And and like, what does performance mean? Does it mean like a happy walk or a sad walk or like a lip sync?
Yeah, it depends. Like if you can just do a good solid walk, like a generic walk, that's
Yeah.
uncommon. Like walks are incredibly difficult. They're probably the hardest thing to do.
Yeah.
Because you just know when they don't look right. But one of the exercises Leica will have interns for animation, and the big assignment at the end of the internship is a puppet has to. So a puppet's standing there, it's like waiting at a bus stop or something. So just staying there waiting, and they have to wave to their friend off screen, and then realize it's not their friend, and kind of like play it off as cool. So if you can get that to read, that's a very difficult thing to do.
Yeah, I was just thinking, like, I don't even know how to act that out without it being ridiculous.
Yeah, so an assignment like that will show, yeah, a good understanding of acting and a good understanding of performance, much better than just performing to a piece of dialogue from a movie.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Cool. So let's jump forward a little bit and talk about where you're currently at. But what was the decision that made you move back to Canada and pursue your own career in your own hands?
There were a lot of things.
Yeah.
So yeah, my wife and I, we moved out to San Francisco in like 2011. So we were on the West Coast, United States for 2011 to 20. So it was like 7 years, kind of away from family and friends. So that had a big impact on it. Like we kind of just got tired of that and wanted to come back home. And then at the same time, I started developing this career online through social media. And
Just like as a hobby or intentionally?
Yeah, it was on the side. I was just making stuff, and I kept getting job offers like, "Oh, we'll fly you out to this country. We'll fly you out here. We need you for this job." And I was like, "I can't do it. I have this full-time job." So more and more opportunities presented themselves to make the leap.
So what was that? What was the ending push that made you say, "I'm going to do this"?
Well, we had wrapped Missing Link. Well, the end of Missing Link was coming up, and I knew there'd be like a lull in production at Laika. So there'd be some downtime, and I was like, do I really want to, like, it sounds nice going to work and having downtime, but I was like, I'm enjoying this social media so much. I can either, for the social media work, I can't do this part-time anymore. I either have to like stop or jump in full-time. So kind of everything came together. I was like, it makes sense to move back, to take my career into my own hands, not work studio hours. Essentially just do whatever I want on social media.
Yeah. What was the toughest thing to give up from the studio life?
I really do miss like being there with the team.
Yeah.
Like every day, you do your morning coffee with the whole animation team, and just hang out. So I do miss that. And I do miss like just being left alone on a stage every day to like animate feature level stuff. Like I just love doing that. So I don't have that experience anymore right now with my own stuff. I still get to animate, but not at that level.
Right. Right. Do you want to animate at that level again, do you think?
If it made sense. Um, for now, I'm in the mentality that I'll just ride this social media wave.
Fair, fair. Until I build up a huge stop motion studio here in Toronto and make a feature film. Um, yeah, can you kind of just give an overview of what you describe your career right now as, like what it entails and what you're doing?
Yeah, so I kind of operate as like a mini creative studio. Like half the work that I do is for brand, like I'll create videos for companies and they just post it on their channels. And I'm kind of like a hidden director on them. And then half the work is, yeah, promoting stuff on my social media channels. So I just have a big enough audience where I can make a living promoting things.
Nice. So what does your average day look like then?
It depends. All of August was just brand work. That was incredibly swamped.
So this is stuff that we never would see by following your social media.
No, the all of August was like I did like 3 Listerine
Yeah.
projects,
Yeah.
um, and then peppered in some like some other projects, um, and then so right now I'm just doing my own work.
Okay.
I just said like I just want to stop doing brand stuff for a month and just focus on my own work.
So what is the, I guess you said you're kind of following this path, but what is the dream you're pursuing right now? You know, you started at wanting to pursue magic and now how does that change?
Honestly, I'm just taking it day by day. um, like right now, it's all about like as I'm getting older, like work-life balance becomes a priority.
Yeah,
Um,
sure.
so right now, I'm just really enjoying being on my own time and being able to say like yes or no to whatever projects I want.
Sweet.
So I don't know how long it'll last, but I'll do it while I can.
Yeah, for sure. And that's like a super amazing and rare opportunity. So that's some of the highlights. Are there lowlights to what you're doing now too?
Um, there haven't been like starting out. There were when I was first like talking to agencies and brands. Um, when I was representing myself, there was like projects I would get halfway through and they would fall through,
Uh,
um, like just stuff like that. But now I have an agent who takes care of everything. Um, yeah, as it grows, I'm getting more support. Um,
nice.
so there's less of that nonsense.
Does your agent actively, I guess, seek out things for you, or do you have, because of your
Yeah,
giant social media following, are you just naturally getting enough requests?
yeah, there's enough requests, and I just kind of put them all onto him to handle.
Nice.
Um, but yeah, I think like notes from brands are probably the worst thing. Like I'll spend a week like just perfecting something, and I'll send it, and they'll be like, "Oh, we didn't mention this before, but can you add this thing?" And I'm like, "Tell me a
Go
week."
at it yourself.
Yeah.
What have you done so you have like a huge, massive following. What have you done to intentionally build that following over the years? Because I know that when I first started following you on Instagram, when you started posting behind the scenes of Kubo,
Yeah.
um, so what have you intentionally done to gain all the followers you have?
The first thing I did, um, it's I kind of call it like pretending to be an expert. So
You
whatever.
are an expert.
I guess technically, but um, presenting yourself as an expert, I guess, is a better way to phrase it. Whatever the field you're in, if you have a social media account and you either have to impress people with like, look at me, look at this cool thing I made, or learn from me, like here's some good information. Um, so what I just purposely would post the behind the scenes of Kubo, and I would just write as much as Instagram would allow me in a description, just to present myself as I'm a stop motion expert. if you're into stop motion, you should follow me. And that was very conscious, kind of the way I approached it. Like I wanted to appear like an expert, and that was the first kick of followers. And then, like, I don't really know what made it take off after. I think it's just making cool stuff, honestly.
But aren't you also kind of playing to the Instagram algorithm a little bit with the videos that you've made? Like they're very simple in design with like
Yeah,
clear colors, and they're like short, like
yeah. I
your
guess
fruits and stuff.
the fruit.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the fruit one, yeah, that was very much deliberate. I was like, the internet loves oddly satisfying stuff. Um, so I totally built that project off that premise. Like I was gonna make, if I just slice fruit, make it visually interesting, the colors pop, the sounds are cool. And yeah, that was a hit. Like that project alone brought in like 250,000 Instagram followers. Like just
That's
from
crazy.
one.
That's insane. So from my point of view and a lot of people's point of view, it all just looks like success, success, success. But so have there been things that you've done that have kind of flopped or not gone the way that you would have expected through this journey?
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of been the last year or so. Has just been experimenting. I don't know if, like, I always feel good about the videos I make. Like if I don't like them, I'm not going to put them out.
Right.
But it's more about what can I make that will have long-term life to it as a series, or bringing in ad revenue. So that's kind of what I'm experimenting with on YouTube right now.
Right.
Like what kind of videos can I make that will perform well, that'll bring in revenue, that I can stay interested in over a long period of time. So my YouTube channel has been an absolute mess this whole year. And that's kind of something I'm tackling over this past week and this week, is developing a new series that I'm like just super excited about, that I think could go on forever.
Really? Like with stop motion then? Or magic or both?
Stop motion.
Nice.
So
Wow.
I did a test early in the year. So I've just been testing all year. So in January, I made a video. It was called "Can I Animate a Bar of Soap?" And I was like, if I take the most boring object and challenge myself to animate it, and like I did a long form YouTube video where it's like from idea to final video. And then, yeah, it performed super well on YouTube. And I was like, okay, I can take the most boring thing and somehow make it exciting. So I'm going to follow that format and see how it goes.
I like it. It's like, I've seen that video as well. It's like, will it blend, or like those, like, will it, like the hydro, whatever, will
Yeah.
it crush? Can I animate it? Yeah. I can see you taking like the most random stuff and animating it, and clearly you have the skill.
Yeah.
I have a question for you that's a little bit more personal, I guess. So you saw my wizard animation, but what can I do to capitalize off of that based on what you said about presenting myself as an expert and behind the scenes and stuff? What would you recommend I do now to keep that going?
Like to use it as much as possible to grow a following.
Yeah.
I mean, for some reason, like time lapses of stop motion just perform super well. Like definitely invest in like time lapsing stuff.
Well, I didn't do that when I was animating.
Yeah.
I have some behind the scenes, but not much.
Yeah, because honestly, like the animation, the actual content of the animation sometimes doesn't matter. Like for all my stop motion, the behind the scenes perform 10 times better than the actual animation.
It's crazy.
That would honestly be my my tip.
All right. So going forward, I'm gonna make sure I always do a behind the scenes time lapse.
Yeah, and I always do that like vertical, like the split screen method. And I always take the extra couple hours to sync up the time lapse exactly with the animation. So like frame per frame, they're exactly synced.
They're so fun to watch, though. I always watch them.
Like I see people do them, the time lapses of stop motion, and they're just a little off. like they don't line up perfectly, and you don't have the context. Like you need them to, yeah, it's really worth it to put in the effort on that.
Gotcha. So like, what if you have to go back and redo some frames? Do you edit that out of the time lapse as well?
Yeah, like I go in and like frame by frame match up the time.
Oh wow. Okay. Oh my gosh. It's interesting. Okay, so if you were to like, this is kind of like one of my last questions, but like if you were to, I guess, create a course on how to be like Kevin Parry in his career right now, what courses would you include in that? Like from my perspective, there'd be the one on like how to stop motion basics, and there's like one on like how to build a social media following. Like, what is the course package you put together for your career?
Like for making social media content.
Or just, yeah, or just like it doesn't even have to be that. It could be like understanding your value and like pursuing your stuff like that, even.
Yeah.
Like just where you are at in your career and life right now.
My, I think my whole career, whether, you know, stop motion or um, social media, has been, it's all built upon visual storytelling. So that would be my like my building block for all courses I would ever teach. Like I'm super influenced by silent comedians like Buster Keaton and Charlie Chaplin. Like I've gone through so many of their films and just dissected like shot by shot their performances and their camera choices, and that goes into everything that I do now. Just like clear visual storytelling.
So there's like, so you don't need any dialogue or like text or anything.
Yeah, for me, like I personally believe like there's such a resurgence of silent film on Instagram now. If I make videos that don't need a word spoken, like that means the whole world can watch them. They don't rely on English. They don't rely on subtitles. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense, and that's a really good point. Like I don't turn on my volume when I'm on social at all.
Exactly. Like most people are watching it in line, grabbing a coffee, and if they can get your video with no sound, it's so much better.
Yeah. I mean, there's like a rare video I'll save to watch when I do have sound, but if I need to understand it with sound, I'm just like, next, whatever.
Exactly.
So there's too much on there to watch.
Yeah. And that's also a thing, like frame one, make it happen. Like if you're waiting a second to get into your video, then you've lost it.
Yeah, totally. It's 100%, yeah. Cool. So I guess we can just wrap it up, but I was going to ask you what's next, but it already sounds like you're working on this new series for YouTube. So unless there's other things that you'd like to share.
No, I'm just toying around with this new series. So on my YouTube, I've been doing these like 50 ways videos.
Yes.
For like the last year or two. And yeah, those are a good example of like I enjoyed making them in the start. And then like they just performed super well, and I just kind of like bought into the hype and just kept making them to the point where I got exhausted and I just don't care anymore about those. And now, so I'm like, you know, you kind of get creator burnout for stuff like that. And so I really want to focus on, this new stop motion series I'm doing. I don't know how it's going to perform, but like I'm really making a video that I'm so inspired to just put everything I have into it. And I think that's kind of the success, or the secret to success online, is like if you're making stuff that you're putting everything into and it's like 100% you, then it's going to do better than anything anyone can force themselves to make.
I 100% agree with that. I think that's a really important thing to understand too when you're producing content.
Yeah.
Because it's very easy to burn out, and also just to make content for the sake of making content, and then when you're doing that, it has no impact.
Exactly. Yeah. If you're forcing yourself to make something and it's not you, like it doesn't feel like what you should be making, then it's not going to perform too well.
Well, and people can tell right away. It's just doesn't stand out.
Yeah. People have such a sensitivity to authenticity.
It's true.
They'll notice right away if it's not there.
Yeah. Cool. Is there anything else you'd like to share before we wrap it all up? Anything you'd tell younger Kevin, or like you want other people at Sheridan to know, or just in general?
I mean, it might be easy to look at my career and try, like, and I did this too. When I was at school, I saw people I looked up to, and I was like, you know, I want that career. Where they are, like, tell me how they got there, and I'll like replicate every step to get there. But it honestly, it's so different for every person. Like, I didn't think I'd ever be doing this as a job. And I honestly don't know how I got to this point. So yeah, it's just super organic. Like, you know, your career will take you into random places. And yeah, just follow it, and just follow your passions and what you enjoy doing. And you'll end up where you're supposed to be.
Yeah, I think
especially in this, like, in social media, this, like, you know, the social media driven world, it's, you know, you can kind of see someone like myself, you know, I have a following online, that's my job. Like, it would be easy to look at me and say, like, oh, I want that too. How do I replicate that? But, you know, I got here by just doing what I love to do. Like, no one forced me to make videos on the weekends while I was working a full-time job. I just loved doing it, and I couldn't stop. And that's what got me to where I am today.
Yeah, but I also, like, I totally agree with that. But you also had some of the, like, reflection and realization that you could turn that into something more for yourself too.
Yeah.
So, but anyways, I think
it was never the plan. It just, my passions led me here.
Well, that's great, and I think that's really good advice to end on.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Kevin, for coming on the podcast. It's been a real nice pleasure to chat with you.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
Cool. And if you're listening and you'd like to follow Kevin's work, you probably are already. You could do so by looking him up on Instagram under Kevin B. Parry, or finding him on YouTube by looking up his name, which is just Kevin Parry. And that's all for now. Okay, bye.